I'm Helena Sorensen, and I'm reading a little portion of my first book, Shiloh, and we're starting with the prologue. In the beginning, there was Ram. He was alone and apart from everything, and he was great and joyful and immensely strong and good. To begin, he created the sun, round and red and gold, and he loved its brightness and its warmth. But the sun shone down on an empty world, and Ram was grieved. He looked at the void and longed to fill it with color and life. So Ram created other creators to help him fill the emptiness. 3 sons and 3 daughters burst into being from the soil of Ram's thought. Leander, Rurik, and Vali were fierce, daring, brave. Petra, Callista, and Rhiannon were strong, beautiful, wildly free. These sons and daughters of Ram, like their father, were not bound by flesh. They could see into one another and discern one another's minds. And whenever one of the immortals, for so they came to be called, saw in another immortal an image that matched something in his own mind, that image came to life. Leander and Rhiannon shared many visions of wild creatures, and it was not long before the world was filled with soaring birds and creeping beasts. Vali and Petra shaped the mountains, great wind-swept peaks tipped with snow. And Rhiannon and Callista formed the flowers, soft purple heather and delicate wild roses. In this way, Shiloh was filled with life, and the immortals at times even created other immortals to share in their work. At the birth of Linden, trees spread over the land, gathering into forests and hedging the meadows, their great branches stretching toward the sky. Some of the trees were touched by Ram, and they took on a spark of the life of the immortals. At Maya's birth, rivers cut through earth and stone, laughing and rollicking their way across the land. Ram was so delighted that he filled the waters with nymphs, shimmering creatures whose eyes sparkled in the light of the sun. But Rurik, as yet, had taken no part in creation. He went to his brothers, Leander and Vali, searching their minds for some vision that matched his own. It was not to be found. He went to his sisters, but neither Petra nor Callista shared any thought with him. Rurik was angry at this, for his brothers and sisters shared in their father's work and their father's glory, but he did not. He wished, in fact, that he might create alone, bringing into existence the thoughts of his own mind as only Ram could. It was not until Rurik went to Rhiannon that he discovered some trace of himself, for Rhiannon was the wildest of Ram's children, and she too longed to be free of the immortal's one restraint. In her heart, as in her brother's, a dark sliver of rebellion resided. Rhiannon was neither cruel nor wicked, but like the wind, she could not be contained, and she hardly knew what she did when she stood face to face with her brother and brought into being the shadow. Chapter 1. Amos was no more than 7 when he killed a shadow wolf, in the dark of the Whispering Wood no less, where wolves were as thick as the undergrowth. The story spread like wildfire. It was rehearsed in every cottage, alehouse, and market, from the pallid peaks to the southern moors, until there was hardly a person in Shiloh who didn't know the tale by heart. He was hunting with his dah, one man would say. Aye, another would say, and he wasn't even watching out for danger, though his father warned him of it time and again. Amos was born without the fear, a third would interject. He strolls through the dark of the Whispering Wood, whistling, as if it was nothing more than laying outside his cottage. 'Twas crouched in the thicket, the first man would continue, eager to reclaim the role of storyteller. He saw the flash of the wolf's eyes and heard a growl like distant thunder. That's when he came alive, the second would say. In the flickering of a candle, he pulled an arrow from his quiver and breathed on it. And the arrow was set ablaze, the third would interrupt. He marked his prey and shot straight and true into the shadow. At this point in the story, a boy would inevitably burst in on the gathering, brandishing his bow and arrow and shouting the words Amos had spoken to the wolf. "You're no more than shadow and smoke, beast. Be gone." Then the men would laugh, shooing the boy back to his play, and finish their tale, their voices hushed with wonder. And the demon blew away like vapor on the wind. It was not unheard of for a man's breath to set something alight. For that matter, it was not unheard of for any number of extraordinary things to happen in Shiloh. It was just rare. And as year followed year, in an endless line of unbroken darkness, it had become increasingly rare. Nearly 1,500 years had passed since Hammon had learned the secret of fire and wielded it in battle against the Shadow Wolves. He had founded the Fire Clan, but despite its name, the clan could boast no more than a handful of men and women in its long history who shared Hammon's gift. That is why Amos was special. He would have been openly revered by his clansmen, would doubtless have risen to become the light of the clan if it weren't for the stories. If only he and his father didn't speak so often of what lay beyond the shadow. There was nothing but darkness in Shiloh. In the shadow they lived and moved and breathed. It was the sky above them, the night enclosing them, the darkness blinding them, and the power hunting them. It was what they had always known, all they had ever known, and only the most foolish had ever dreamed that anything lay beyond it. Wynne finished mending the gray woolen tunic and folded it neatly, laying it on a cot in the corner. She sat down at the kitchen table, its wood surface worn smooth from years of use, and began to chop the potatoes that waited in a basket on the floor nearby. Other than the cots and the table where Wynne sat, there was little furniture in the stone cottage. A wooden trunk, bound with iron and bearing the sign of the Fire Clan, sat against the wall, and 2 chairs rested on a woven rug near the fireplace. No curtains covered the windows, for light was scarce in Shiloh, and the candles in the fire did little to brighten the interior of the cottage. Outside, gray sheep grazed in their fold. Across the lane, night-blooming jasmine hung thick over the fence that bordered the meadow. On warm days, its fragrance was heady and sweet. Wynne loved it above all things, and she often wove its flowers into her daughter's hair. Her eyes filled when she thought of Phoebe, and she cut her hand with the knife. "Curse it," she said. "You all right, Ma?" A girl of 4, dark-haired and dark-eyed, sat on the rug near the fire and played with a little rag doll. "I'm all right, little bird, just clumsy is all," Wynne answered, her eyes hardly grazing Phoebe's face. It was still too new. Only a few months had passed since the attack, and the angry red gash stretching from the girl's forehead to her jawline was still too much of a shock. What if Amos hadn't been there? The question haunted Wynne in the quiet of the night, when visions of green eyes and cold fangs and the echo of her daughter's screams drove away the sweet oblivion of sleep and awakened older, darker terrors. Amos walked into the cottage with an armload of firewood, and his sister jumped to greet him. He set his load by the hearth and scooped her up, placing her in his lap as he sat on the bench next to his mother. Playfully, he tugged at strands of Phoebe's dark hair. Wynne looked him over. His tunic and trousers were stained as usual, his red-brown hair awry. Though he hadn't been hunting that day, his arm guard was firmly in place, and his quiver and bow leaned against the wall beside the door, ready at a moment's notice. The cat's claw hung around his neck on a leather cord. Wynne didn't like to look at it. What if he hadn't been there? "Couldn't you use another candle, Ma? How can you see to do your cooking?" "I can see just fine, Amos." She reached over to smooth the boy's hair and pinch his chin. "You work on your arrows for a while, and dinner will be ready soon." Phoebe went back to her rag doll, and Amos sat cross-legged on the floor, pulling stalks of river cane from a nearby basket. He notched the ends of the cane stalks with his knife, and then fitted them with small pointed stones. He was just beginning to wrap the ends of the arrows with sinew when Abner came through the door. "Good evening, my dear ones," Abner greeted. His wife was the only one to notice when his eyes reached Phoebe and his smile faltered. He placed a small quail on the table. Wynne took the tiny bird, plucked it and cleaned it, and stirred it into the kettle with the potatoes and a handful of herbs. As she worked, she listened to the chatter of her children and exchanged meaning glances with her husband. "And what song do you have for me today, little nightingale?" Phoebe sat on her father's knee and smiled up at him. It was not her old smile. This one was smaller, favoring the wound that still pained her. But she sat up straight and tall and proudly announced, "I've learned a new one, Da." "Aye, well, you must sing it for me then." The little girl opened her mouth, and when the first clear note rang out, everything else in the room seemed to dim. She sang, "Far, far away in the crystal teardrops hanging from the branches of the silent trees, gone, gone away to the hall of shadows, peering through the mist with eyes that cannot see. Shine, shine away, keep the lights a-burning, never let the embers of the flame go out. Run, run away, for the shadow weavers come to take a trophy to their master's house." When she finished, the cottage felt colder. Wynne resumed her work, wondering how it was that children could make a playful sing-song out of such a dark reality. It chilled her blood to think of it. "Where did you hear that song, Phoebe?" Abner asked. "The children in the village were singing it," she said, "last time we took the vegetables to market." "Don't sing it anymore, little bird, all right?" "She doesn't know what it means, Da," Amos chimed in. "Still," Abner said, looking his son in the eye. "Still, I'd rather she didn't." Phoebe's eyes grew large and her chin quivered. "I didn't mean to, Da. I won't sing it no more, I swear it." Abner wrapped her in both his arms and stroked her hair. "Hush now, little one, it's all right." The cottage filled with the smoky green smell of herbs and potatoes, and the family sat down to a dinner of bread and cheese and rich stew. They spoke of their day's adventures and misadventures, of the progress of the garden and the health of the flock, and soon Win was clearing the dishes and tucking the children into their cots. "What will I dream of tonight, Ma?" Phoebe asked. She had been captured of late by the tale of Maeve, who dreamed of a great light in the sky. Win kissed her cheek tenderly, careful to avoid the scar. "Well, little bird, perhaps you'll dream the meadow is filled with wildflowers in colors you've never even imagined." Amos sat up in his cot. "I am going to dream of the pallid peaks. I'll be hunting for Sirius, the great black dragon." Amos wielder of fire, Win thought to herself. She bent to kiss his forehead, resting a hand on his wayward hair. There's no end to the boy's ambition, no limit to his courage. Her mother's heart twisted with pride and pain. Of course, none of them dreamed, and that was a mercy. Dreaming was a strange, a rare gift. Dreamers were treated with suspicion and fear, and they often came to bad ends. No mother would wish dreaming on her children. Phoebe's small, clear voice broke the silence, bidding good night with a familiar phrase, "May the light shine upon you." "And you," they each